Hey, good morning. My name is Ana Stephanie Munoz. I'm a transformational and stress management coach. Thank you for joining us on our live today. It will last around 45 minutes, and we're going to talk about how to burn bright without burning out. You can watch this live anytime on Facebook or YouTube when you subscribe. If you hear me well, please like or comment below from which part of the world you're watching us. Our special guest today is a certified transformational coach, influential speaker, best-selling author, and international best-selling speaker. So if you want to find out more about our lives, I'm going to leave you the link so you can join our list. And every week we have a different live that it's amazing. At my company, Excede tu Potencial or Exceed Your Potential, we're a virtual coaching platform where you learn to manage your mind and your emotions through self-knowledge and self-awareness, through programs, workshops, retreats, and tools that help professionals discover their potential and find a life balance. Discover, unleash, and exceed your potential. I'm an expert in stress and anxiety management, and I help you benefit and enhance your life. So we are going to do a masterclass this week that I want you to invite you. It's in Spanish though, so for those Spanish speaker people, it's taking place on Thursday and it's called Éxito en el 2022, Success in 2022. So you're going to learn the 3 keys to navigate all the challenges that you might have this year. So, with no further ado, I want to introduce you our very special guest today. She's a very good friend, and her name is Wendy Lee. Wendy was a rock star in the world of HR. Having worked her way up from recruiter to senior vice president, she allowed her own personal transformation to influence the way she showed up as a heart-centered leader. Today, she brings this approach dubbed Let Her Ship Revolution to stages, coherence rooms, and retreat centers around the world. She sparks her audience to look within with a revolutionary perspective to create connection and healing in all aspects of life. She's an international best-selling author and currently working on her next book, Lead Her Ship Revolution. I hope I said it correct, Wendy. Could you share a few words with your audience? I love what you're writing about. It's going to be amazing, the book.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, my dear friend. I am so honored to be here. Mucho gusto. And, we've known each other for a few years now
Yeah.
and met in this whole circle of healing and connection. So I already feel connected and honored to be here today. And yes, there's so much exciting things going on. Leadership Revolution is about really tapping into owning your leadership so that you can live the life and have the living that matters to you. So when we do it on our terms, everything else falls into place, right? It's when we don't, when we're making decisions based on what's best for others and putting our needs to the side, we're not really honoring ourselves. We might think we're doing it for everybody else, but we end up paying the price. And in reality, everybody does. Because if you're not at your best and shining in that way, it just doesn't work out. It's not sustainable.
That's not so. And we both that were in the corporate world know that from self-experience of what we went through, right?
Right. And
Our
it's
different
interesting
stories.
because the corporate world or whatever you have on the external, right? It's
Mhm.
just a reflection of where we already are. It's not because it's a reflection of where we are. So all of our environments can teach us the lessons that we need to learn about how we're honoring ourselves. So everything's
Exactly.
welcome. Everything is for our highest good.
Yeah,
Even
nothing is coincidence, right? Everything is synchronicities.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to have you here. And I would like to start, with the audience. I always like to ask the audience things when we start the conversation. And I would like to know Guys, do you identify which are the most difficult processes for you to carry out to become the person you want to be? What has been the most difficult processes in your life to do that? So, while you answered that, Wendy, I would like to know what is the lesson around stress and burnout that took you the longest to transform?
Yeah. And I think this is a very common topic, right? Um, I want to start by answering that question that in our society in general, stress is almost glamorized. What do I mean by
It's
that?
true.
Hashtag hustle culture,
Yeah.
right? Like this hustle, this notion that you got to hustle and
Hmm.
work hard for everything that you do. Um, uh, Work ethic, like work ethic means that you put in everything, you give it your all. And yes, there are aspects to that.
Yeah.
And I grew up, I was born in the late 60s. So that was before anything was happening with women's liberation, women in the workforce. So I have
Hmm.
literally lived the whole transformation of where we are now to where we're going and where we've been. And the lesson for me is that I learned from seeing. So I had a mother and then I had a stepmother, and they weren't really in the workforce all the way yet. Women
Hmm.
were just getting in the workforce. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she basically just had to create her life around whatever the family needed.
Hmm.
So didn't learn how to put myself first there.
No.
My stepmom, I would say, was a little bit more starting to get into the realm of working,
Hmm.
and she worked outside the house, but she did jobs that had to make money to help support the family. So again, it
Hmm.
wasn't like she was doing things that it was her passion, things that
No.
she wanted to do.
No, it's things that she had to do. One
Yeah,
was she had to do at the house, and the other was for the house or for
right,
the family. Hmm.
right. So it really wasn't a choice; it was more of a
No,
forced choice.
yeah.
So when I came up growing up, there was a lot of, I used to say that it was like a dysfunctional family, but dysfunctional is functional because everybody has something in their
We
family
all are dysfunctional.
that's
I
dysfunctional.
have a saying that we're all crazy, but what differences us from the others is the levels.
Yes.
Crazy in different levels, so the dysfunctionality in different levels as well.
Yeah. So let's just normalize that off the bat. But
Hmm.
what it created in me is this stress response, right? Like I started to learn early about responding to stress. And the way that I responded to stress was two different ways. One, masculine. I'll go prove myself. Look at what a good kid I am. I'll do really extra good in school, make
Hmm.
A pluses, do all of this. And then so that's kind of the uber masculine. But
Hmm.
then on the unhealthy feminine, I would make myself small and invisible so that I
Hmm.
wouldn't make any waves. So it
Exactly.
almost seems like it's opposites, but it was coming from the same energy.
Hmm.
And all I did was then take that into the world with me as I got older, started working. Like I started working when I was about 13, but when I was
Hmm.
really starting to get into the workforce, and people responded to that. They
Yeah.
responded to me overdoing, overachieving. I'd get a pat on my back. Oh my gosh, you work so hard. Good job. That's awesome. I would get a promotion. I would make more money.
Exactly.
All of the things were wrapped up in what I did and how much I gave of myself.
Mhm.
And it
But
almost,
externally, right?
yeah, yeah. And it almost became like this reciprocity where somebody would say something and then it would make me feel good about myself. And I
Mhm.
created this little weird victim loop, right?
Exactly.
Where I could be the martyr. Oh my gosh, look at everything that I'm doing. Because I
Mhm.
did. I was working full time. I was going to school at night and I was working a part-time job. And people love that.
So,
Right? It was like, wow, you're amazing. So I just went on this path over and over and over again, right? Had no idea that I was getting burnt out.
Mhm.
I didn't know.
Okay.
I had no idea. It took me 10 years to go through college. I paid for it all myself.
Wow.
And when I graduated and I finally achieved this thing,
Mhm.
and I graduated, I'm super excited. I have all of this uh, like realization that I
Yeah.
put my mind to and I worked hard. I accomplished this thing. And literally the day after, I had a graduation party, all of this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm sitting in my apartment by myself with my degree, and nothing in me changed.
No.
And I crashed and burned. And it wasn't just because of that.
No.
All
That
of
was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it was the tip of the iceberg. Because
Mhm.
really what was happening is everything that I did not deal with, that I went through as a child, I was just keeping busy as my default mode
Of
to
doing and doing and
and
doing.
doing and doing. And I wound up in the hospital for depression.
Wow.
Yeah. I had no idea. Now, looking back, I could see that even as a kid, I had some bouts of depression because I didn't know how to process all of this stress that was happening around me. So I was just repeating the pattern until my soul finally said, okay, that's it. We cannot take
Enough.
it. Time out.
Mhm.
And so I was hospitalized for about 2 weeks with depression.
Wow.
And thank goodness that it gave me the pause, right? Not in a
That
healthy
you need.
way,
No,
not
but it was the pause you needed to really think through your life and really have that aha moment of
yeah,
what was going on. If you didn't stop, even though and the body is very wise, it makes us stop. If we don't do it by ourselves, then our body is when we get sick, is when we don't listen to what's going on and we're not taking out all the emotions. And so the body has an amazing way of telling us to stop.
oh, absolutely. And I love how you phrase that because really stress and even before this, I didn't recognize I was having panic attacks that I didn't know were panic attacks. I was just always, I just figured it was part of this
The
being and doing.
situation, that
Yeah,
it was normal.
it was normal. It
Mhm.
was normal. And really, when we're stressed out, depressed, having anxiety, all it means is that our body is saying, you have been hanging on to energy that you have not processed, that does not belong to you, or that you have assigned a meaning to that is not really true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially, I would add to what you're saying is that you're not living aligned to your soul.
Oh, that's beautiful. And we're not honoring it because we don't know how,
We don't know
right?
how. Yeah.
When I got depressed, the reason that I stayed depressed long enough that it ended up getting me in big trouble, like like I was contemplating suicide. I mean, this was a really high level thing. I had a plan. Luckily I was too chicken that to do anything,
Mhm.
but it became such a normal part. I didn't know that what was happening. So I labeled it as I'm being lazy
Wow.
because I was so used to going and doing and being the person that could take it all on and getting all that positive feedback, which I interpreted as, oh, people love me, they care about me,
Exactly.
right? But
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was going on. So I just kept, okay, I can't get out of bed or make breakfast. I'm just lazy.
Exactly.
I don't want to go to work anymore. I'm just lazy,
Yeah.
right?
You
I'm
didn't
giving
even
up.
understand what was going on.
Yeah. I'm giving up the things that matter to me that make me happy. I'm just lazy.
Wow.
And that's the mindset. And that was really a pivotal aha moment, um, that, okay, the soul is intervening. And thank goodness, our ego works for and against us. It
Exactly.
always for us. It's trying to keep us safe. So when we can get the little whisper, hey, Wendy, you're overdoing it. That's why you're having panic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's kind of like a tap on the shoulder. Hey, Wendy, you know, you're starting to change a lot of your behaviors and having and struggling with things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, Wendy, you get the hit over the head. No, I'm just with the frying pan. Do I have your attention now? Because you are made for much bigger.
Exactly.
You're not meant to be in this space.
Exactly. And we don't understand it when it
Yeah.
happens.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part is to understand that where we are at the moment when this happens is
Yeah.
where we shouldn't be.
Yeah. It's not where we belong.
Hmm.
You and I were talking before we got on the show about, typically when we're young kids, we don't have
Hmm.
stress because we're living in the moment, as well as we are processing our emotions immediately. Have you
Hmm.
noticed, like, when kids are playing and then they get in this fight and they express anger or frustration or disappointment, and then they're done with it, and then they're off to playing and experiencing joy and happiness?
Exactly.
Like, they just process it as we go,
Yeah, as we should do as well.
as natural, right? It's
Mhm.
natural. But when we learn the behaviors to cope and respond and react, instead of taking a time to really move through it, then it gets stuck in our body, and then it shows up as anxiety or stress. And guess what? Unknowingly, we're going to invite in more stress and anxiety
Yeah.
because we're used to that feeling.
Hmm.
We
No,
get used to it. It feels like a high almost.
that's the problem. I was going to tell you, you get addicted to it. That's the
It does
problem.
become that.
Hmm. Especially if you're a doer in the sense that, and I don't mean doers are wrong or are bad. On the other hand, but doers can stop. They have to be doing all something all the time, always. Like I in Spanish we say that you have ants in your butt. Like the ants are, and so you're like,
You
running
got
like
ants in your
crazy.
pants and you need to dance.
Exactly.
Yes.
So with that much energy, and there are a lot of people like that, it's very easy to fall into the trap of getting addicted to the feeling of stress,
Yeah.
to the cortisol releasing in your body, and you want to
Yeah.
feel that all the time, and then it becomes chronic, and then it's when we get ill.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you brought that up because our body literally cannot decipher between stress and excitement. It's the same thing. It's just how we frame it. So even though our body might be telling us you're in danger, something needs to shift or change, our body is still thinking it as the same thing as excitement, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, the key is, how do we learn to really identify when we're showing up in that pattern
Mhm.
and then disrupting it and not making it wrong, because that
Yeah.
energy harnessed, that can do powerful things.
Yeah.
Today is International Women's Day, honoring
Yeah.
that. We could do
Honoring
powerful
all
stuff with that,
we can.
right? But when it's at the expense of our well-being, now we got to take a look at it.
Yeah. Then we're in a dysfunctional feminine and masculine,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
No, and another thing you said that I think it's very, very critical is the fact that we don't become aware of it. And stress, actually, and that's something I teach, there's a positive stress called eustress.
Hmm.
So at the end, stress is always going to be a part of our life. But how do we focus it in a positive way and not in a distress way? Because the distress is the negative way of
Yeah.
stress. Because being in a positive stress and being, like in this And sometimes the problem is it's very fine line between
Mm,
positive or eustress and distress. And the problem is we don't realize when we move to distress. And that's what probably happened to you. You were in eustress because you really love what you were doing, the work, the what you were studying. You were very, like determined to reach your goal. So you were very motivated.
yes.
But suddenly, and you never knew when, you felt to distress.
Yeah.
And that's when, it became something chronic and you became addicted to stress. And then you burn out because your body couldn't handle anymore after X amount of time that you were living that way.
Exactly. Exactly. And, in that, I love that you have clarified the positive, because there is some positive in it, right? I mean, you can build resilience.
Yeah.
You can build a strong mindset. You
Mm-hmm.
can build perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we can do that and not be so heavy in just constant, constant, constant?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's where then it can become problematic. And we don't have to do that. We can
No.
make different choices.
Yeah. No, and now, since the energy is shifting so much, and one of the things I teach my clients, and it's amazing seeing the result, is doing less and achieving more.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's amazing how at the beginning, when they start, like really doing less, they're like, I'm not feeling productive. And I'm like, okay, are you generating money in your company? Yes, much more. Okay. Are you spending more time with your kids and wife? Yes, much more. Not as I would like, but much more. Oh, okay. Then we can do something about it. And what about taking care of yourself? Are you investing time in your? Yeah, yeah. I'm finally okay. So tell me, why aren't you not feeling productive?
Yeah. It's a paradigm shift,
Yeah.
because somewhere somebody made up this rule that in order to be successful, whatever that means,
Yeah.
right? Right, in the defined term of success, which we're all redefining right now, is that you have to really work hard. There has to be a trade-off, right? Um, and yes, you can work hard, but here's the thing, and this is interesting. This is coming full circle. I love how these things just show up when we're in the energy of these conversations. I talked about in the beginning about how, we normalize that behavior. Um, I will call somebody up and I will say, especially during this last 2 years with this energy shift, how are you doing? And the first thing they say is what? I'm busy.
Yeah, oh, I'm doing my best. There's a lot of work. Like there's a lot. It always has to do with doing a lot of things.
Yes, I'm so busy, right? And this busyness is just a mindset that we've gotten used to versus a busy less, right? Because I mean, think about it for yourself, right? When you are really in that busy, 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 like the energy that I get from that person that's so busy that they either can't stay on the phone with me for 5 minutes to catch up or go catch lunch. Like we'll try 20 different times to catch lunch, but they're so busy. That energy that I get back from them feels heavy,
No, and
right?
you're
It feels
like
it
this
feels
afterward.
anxious. It feels, like I don't want to go towards it.
Mhm.
And it's almost as if, because we know we're in the healing world, we can create this busyness to keep people away from us.
Exactly.
It's like this shield, this
Mhm.
stress, the anxiety, it keeps people away from us when really what we want is connection.
Yeah.
Right? We really want connection. So we kind of use this thing as
Mhm.
this buffer,
Exactly.
but it really doesn't exist. And if I'm going to connect with you and you're in this busy energy, you're not giving me the best of you anyway.
No, because I'm somewhere else in my
You're
mind.
somewhere else. So
Mhm.
you might think that you're good at multitasking, which by the way, your brain can't multitask.
No,
You know,
it's a fact.
it's not and it's funny because I was reading somewhere where, generally speaking, women can multitask better than men. That just means that we hold on to our stress at a higher level, right? Men do too, but it's like the busyness is just a distraction from us really getting what we really want, which is love, connection, belonging, being seen, heard, and validate. Well,
Mhm.
nobody can see through that when you're doing this distraction.
No.
And we might also think that, well, I'm so busy because I'm taking on all this stuff
Yeah.
and not asking other people for help. You're
Mhm.
not doing them a favor by taking that on because you're going to be giving what I call the sludge.
This.
Everybody around you gets the leftover, the sludge, the bottom of the
Wow.
barrel. It's
Wow.
not the highest energy.
No, not at all. Not at all. And
So
children resent that a lot
absolutely
because
they
they
do.
feel the energy.
Yes, absolutely. So
Mhm.
imagine if we do take more care of ourselves and we're not in that busyness, but we make time to have space between what we're doing during the day. We schedule in things that are important to us. We schedule in things that raise our energy level. We are automatically going to give more in that way at a meaningful way,
Exactly.
right? Not at a half ass way or the sludge way, but at a
No.
meaningful way. And I think a lot of people through this last 2 years are recognizing what they thought was so important and they had to do is really not the truth.
No. And they realize that it's not as important as they thought it was.
Yeah.
I think we all went through that path. The things that we thought were important at the end, they weren't as important as we thought they were.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was, and I think it has to do with the fact that we didn't want to go back to ourselves and we were using that as a distraction, as you were saying earlier, because that's what we tend to do when we are not ready to see our reality and really examine it and question it and see if we need to adjust things or change things. Sometimes are small tweaks and
Yeah.
sometimes are big changes.
Yeah.
And most of the time I think it's just allowing, the surrender part of allowing what is just to come, and it's for you, the highest interest and the highest, like for all.
Yeah, there comes a point, and there's actually a chapter in the current book that I'm writing, Leadership Revolution, about response ability. Like imagine the word response dot ability in italics.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we have to own those pieces of us, right? And take responsibility, which means that we're going to be okay with going back and resolving things that maybe are still showing up, number one. Two, taking responsibility that in every situation, we're the common denominator. I
Yes,
hate to
yes,
say this, but we're the common denominator.
yeah,
So what is showing back to us is just a mirror of where our energy is, right?
exactly,
But when we master these things, then we have the ability to respond in a different way.
completely.
Yeah. And it makes life more enjoyable.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that we're trying to get to this place of bliss on a
Mhm.
constant level. We wouldn't have all of these emotions if they weren't part of our experience. But it's
Exactly.
taking that all in, um, honoring it, loving on it, extracting out the energies that work, and then we bring that out into the world.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. For the people that arrive late, a little bit later, we're talking about how to burn bright without burning out with Wendy Lee. She's a certified transformational life coach, influential speaker, and bestseller author and international speaker. So I want to ask the audience, I would like to know, guys, has we've been talking about how normal it's become stress in our life. It wasn't like that when we were young. Well, for the older generations, for the younger generations, it started becoming something normal when they were growing up. So but I want to ask you guys, is this stress a normal part of your life? And why have you normalized it? You know, why? And with that in mind, I would like to know your opinion, all the people in the audience. And Wendy, what do you think we have accepted stress as a normal part of our success, and what would that be available for us if we shift our mindset? We started talking a bit about
Mhm.
that, but
Yeah.
if you can summarize, like, where should we focus really our energy so we can shift that and really
Yeah.
focus it on a positive thing?
Yeah. So the positive thing is, the whole reason why I um, called the speak How to Burn Bright Without Burning Out is that we're all put on this earth in this little bitty time frame to bring some sort of light to the world.
It's
Like
true.
that's really our true essence, whether it's our gifts, whether it's our compassion, whatever it is that we have, there's something here that we're meant to do. And we're a vessel for those things to go through, right? But sometimes we get so focused on the thing that we're doing versus the energy that we're moving that we
Mhm.
can get in that burnout phase. So it's become normalized because it just has, but just because it's normalized doesn't mean that we have to do it that way, because isn't it kind of weird that something that's not normal for us as a human, we're normalizing?
Yeah,
So what if we could take that energy and make the difference? And
I
it starts
love that.
with us, right?
Mm.
It starts with us. The main thing is awareness.
Yeah,
Where in your life are you creating those patterns,
I
right?
love
Having
that
some
so much.
awareness. The second is then accepting, okay, that makes sense. There was probably something that happened in your past. Let's
Mhm.
accept that, love it, and then let's extract from that what we can use to put forward in this world, our light. Um, this whole thing about burning bright without burning out, I was lucky enough to be in a book collaboration called Be the Beacon, which talks
Mhm.
about shining our light in the world. And when I got invited to be a part of this, immediately a memory came through of when I was a little child, probably about 10 years old. At the time, we lived in Virginia in the United States. And we used to, in the summertime, catch fireflies.
Wow.
And that just for some reason, when she asked me to be a part of Be the Beacon, shine,
Mhm.
shine, shine your light, it started me thinking about fireflies. And I did a little research on it. And fireflies, um, are bioluminescent creatures, which means that they get their energy, right, from basically producing their light. They produce it, but there's also a protective coating around it
Mhm.
in order for them to shine. Otherwise, they'll literally die.
Exactly.
And if you've ever seen a firefly when they're lit up, they're
Mhm.
beautiful. But
They
when
are
their
beautiful.
light goes out, they're not very attractive looking bugs,
They're
right?
kind of ugly, yeah.
So the message in all of this is, how can we shine bright in a protective way? Because we've got big dreams, right? And protective just means, like, what boundaries are we putting on what matters to us? Our time,
Mhm.
our energy, what we're doing. Do we even put boundaries on that? Do we even check in and say, is this going to add value to my day and lift it up, or is this going to bring it down?
Mhm.
And we get caught in those moments of making those choices, right? From determining what everybody else we think are going to say, think, or feel, which most of the time doesn't even come out that way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly. Never.
So it really is about how can we focus on keeping that part fulfilled first and then radiating it out.
Yeah. Because it starts with the inside out.
Yes, it starts with the inside out every single time, every single time.
I love that. I love that. And, I would like to know in the audience, there's another question I want to ask you guys is, do you know if you have stress? And if you do, how do you handle it? Tell us about it. How do you handle it? Sometimes we handle it good, sometimes bad, but what's your energy around it? And Wendy, I would like to know what's the biggest aha you received in your lifetime around the notion of reducing stress or handle it more positive for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest aha um, was really around learning about masculine and feminine energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and I put it this way, like for me, the masculine energy and feminine energy, it's not a male and female, right? It's not men and women. We all have masculine and feminine energy in our body constantly. The masculine energy to me represents that, from the neck up,
Mm-hmm.
our logic, our thinking, our producing. So things like doing, achieving, you know, all of this stuff is from here. From
Mm-hmm.
the neck down, our heart and our intuition in those chakras, it's really about, feeling and creating and being rather than doing, receiving, right? All of these notions. And I learned about this when I went on a wellness retreat. I had never really learned about the concept.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the corporate world, and really a lot of my life, I was in a very strong masculine doing, proving. You got to do this, and in order to do this, you got to go here. It's all on a time frame, and you know all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I learned about it, I was like, oh, I have this awareness. I accepted that was part of me, but I wanted to bring in a little bit more of the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So I started actually bringing that in at work, and it completely shifted everything. I had one of the people that worked for me said, "You know what, Wendy? You've always been a great boss. I love you. You're fair. You're a great person. You're a good leader. But there was just this one part that I thought you were holding back. And that was my feminine. I wasn't really showing my heart in those
Wow.
areas. And when I started doing that, people started leaning into that more. And I started feeling better,
Yeah.
right? So the aha that I've had around, and it's been an evolution, is at first I thought it needs to be balanced. Like, we have to have half and half, and that keeps us balanced.
Mm-hmm.
What's changed recently for me is that we have access to either the masculine or the feminine at all times. And
We
that
do.
creates balance.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
We
we're
do.
working on a project and we got to do it. So we might pull in 75% masculine,
Exactly.
right? Or we might then create something out of allowing and having the intuition coming through. That's the feminine. And then we execute it with our masculine. So it's available to us at all times, but it makes a huge difference with us not getting burnt out.
Yeah. And both, I mean, and me like you, I've been studying about feminine and masculine for a long time already, and kind of like, doing it in my everyday life. And it's amazing because each side has a positive side and a dysfunctional side. So you can be aware as well, like, okay, I'm in my feminine, but it's a negative feminine, or I'm in my masculine and it's a negative masculine, or, I'm in my positive. And you see, like, that how the energy is moving around you of the things that the type of conversations you have, the type of response from the people you have, according to how are you handling that balance among your feminine and masculine.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And it can feel vulnerable, right? It
Yeah,
can be
it
vulnerable to
does.
step into the feminine part, but there's an advantage to us really connecting with our vulnerability. All of those things that we talked about, our intuition, our awareness, our connection, um, all of those things show up when we embrace our vulnerability. So, yeah, it's
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm so happy. This conversation has been amazing. And, to the audience, I don't know if you have any questions to Wendy. We are about to wrap up. But I don't know, Wendy, so we give some time to the audience to say if they have questions and stuff. I already put the contact details from Wendy on the chat. So if you want to know further about her work, you want to have a conversation with her about what she does and or her new book. But Wendy, I would love you to give some, final advice to the audience of how they can burn bright without burning out.
Yeah. I think it starts with the notion of you are enough, right? We don't have to prove ourselves anymore. The proving and doing is so yesterday, right? The hustle, let's do hashtag hustle culture no more, right?
I love
And
that.
a lot of times it can feel for us that it's selfish, but ish just means putting yourself even just a little bit first, because you're
Hmm.
really benefiting yourself, your relationships, your business, whatever you're doing in the world to that higher level. And that's really what we're all here to do. When we do that collectively, that's how we shift this collective consciousness. And if there's anything that this world has been trying to get our attention, remember the frying pan? We're in the frying pan moment right now,
Moment.
what we've gone through. It's trying to get our attention that that is not what is important.
But I
It's,
don't think it's a fry pan. I think it's a wok.
it's a walk. Yes, yes. Or a big, heavy steel. I mean, the old
Yeah,
cast iron ones.
yeah, we have those to to do a black beans. So people
Yes,
here in Latin America know what I'm
yes.
talking about. The black bean pots
The
that we
heavy,
use, that
yes,
type of pots.
yes. So you
We're-
there's not you don't have to pay a price to be who you're really meant to be. That's
you don't.
all uh not true. It just isn't true.
No, it's
And
not.
you're not making the biggest difference you can in yourself and in the world by doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to show you a comment from Andrea Chacon. She's in Guatemala. It's so good to have you here, Andrea. Thank you for your time. Powerful tool to stop burning out.
Thank you, Andrea. Nice to meet you. Yes.
It's amazing. I love the audience. I guys, these are amazing tips that Wendy is giving us today, and I really hope you burn bright instead of burning out. Burning out, it's not the path. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
For me, I have many of my clients went through there, are going through there, but there's a different path, and we can teach you that. We don't have to come to a burnout to change your life.
We basically have two choices. We can extinguish our flame or we can fan our flame to make it shine brighter in the world. And we
What do
have the
you
power to
want?
do it ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
What do
don't do it
you want?
alone. Get in
No,
groups like this, right? We're all searching for the same thing, but it
exactly.
starts with us. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Wendy. Thanks for your final words, and thank you, audience, for being here today. As you know, next week there's another live, so hope to see you there. If you're not on the email list and you still don't receive our lives information, then you can sign up. They're mainly in Spanish, so for people that are watching, they're English speakers. That's the only thing. But sometimes I have very special guests giving the lives in English. So you can subscribe. Most of the things are in Spanish, however, but it's a pleasure to have you here today. So thank you very much and see you guys next week. Bye.